please note that we have my contact information there that you can definitely reach out and be able to do that. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started here. So what we're going to be talking today about is search engine optimization. So really what we're looking at here is we're looking at how do we optimize the way that Google views us? And, again, how do we really, at the end of the day, increase our rankings, but understanding what SEO is, understanding what search engine optimization is, and so that we can, again, have the best relationship possible with Google. So when we start talking about search engine optimization, there are a few things that we're going to go over in the presentation today. And the first is going to be really focusing on content, the content on our site, the content off our site, how that looks and everything like that. We're going to go through that kind of strategy. Then we're also going to talk a little bit about social media. But today we're just going to really kind of focus on briefly how social media actually impacts SEO. We're not necessarily going to get into how do we get more likes, how do we get more engagement and things like that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to really kind of focus on mobile and really kind of look at why mobile devices have really changed search engine optimization. Then we'll also look at some Google tools and some advertising and how all this plays into this whole thing that we kind of call search engine optimization. The other thing to also kind of note is that while we will be looking at Google as the main type of, again, search engine, we are actually, again, as we all kind of know, but do know that essentially Yahoo, Bing, and the other search engines have essentially again, conceded engine out there and is going to kind of, they're going to let Google kind of, blaze the trail, so to speak, and then they're going to kind of follow in. So while we're going to focus on Google today, the positive is that when you do these techniques, it has that ripple effect and that auxiliary effect to have an impact on the other search engines as well. So the reason that we want to look at, again, search engine optimization is to really look at, again, why we're all important, again, why we're all so interested and why it's so important to all of us is really kind of gets down to the economic impact. So studies have shown, and actually we'll get the 2019 stats here later this year, but really just to give you an idea of just really kind of seeing the growth is that back in 2011, when Google was starting to do a lot of these stats, it was estimated that Google search and advertising tools alone generated $80 billion of economic activity. Now we're seeing that number at $335 billion for 2018. So, again, huge growth, huge potential there. And really, we can probably all kind of realize this and experience it because, people are going to Google, people are going to search engines more to find a solution to their need. And that's really the biggest thing that we're talking about here is at the end of the day, we want to, again, be that solution for those searchers that are looking for something. And so when we do a search, I just kind of like showing people this, is that there are mainly 5 components to every search. And yes, we're using Google here, but this also applies to other search engines as well. So the first is a search query. Anytime we do a search, if that's one letter or an entire sentence, it's going to be called a search query. So, and search queries can also be if we type them out, if we speak into Siri or Google Assistant, if we copy and paste, however it is, when we click enter or we, hit send or we have Siri complete the, the search, it's called a search query. Now I know we've all used Google at least once in our lives. And when we get a search result, what we have here is going to be 4 different kind of components. And so the first is a lot of times you'll see paid ads at the top. And so these are advertising, again, opportunities that you can essentially pay Google for that are based off of the keywords. Another super highly valuable one, especially for small business owners to really look to, if you're looking to capitalize initially or look at one of the best ROI, return on investment, SEO strategies are the local listings or Google My Business. Those are super valuable, and we'll get into those and actually talk about those later on the presentation. We also have organic search results, which is mainly kind of what we're talking about here. The most direct way to, begin to influence Google is, organic search results, and to be able to have those different, our website popping up, our different landing pages popping up for different search terms. And then last but not least, we also have what we kind of call a knowledge graph or an ID card. This is where our it's more of a business profile. If someone's looking more specifically for you, they can find more information about you. If that's, your address, your reviews, things like that, and et cetera. And we'll also be talking about that later on in the presentation, because that's actually derived from Google My Business. But the point is, I always like to just kind of make sure that we're on the same page here, and that we understand that there are 5 main components to a search engine, and these are the 5 there. So when we start talking about SEO and search engine optimization, it's really important to know that there are 3 different types of SEO. So we have back-end optimization, front-end optimization, and off-site optimization. So these are the 3 different kind of components that really kind of, again, make up SEO. And then they're also done in 2 different phases called foundational SEO and then ongoing relational SEO. So back-end optimization is going to be everything that you kind of don't see, or everything behind the scenes of your website. This is usually where most people, again, apply SEO, because it's the most technical piece. This is the stuff that you're dealing with, again, your coding, the different settings. If you're using, like, for instance, WordPress or Weebly or Squarespace, there's different types of settings in the back end to make sure that it's easier for Google to, again, analyze. Or a lot of times dealing with potential coding if we're attaching, like, for instance, a Google Search Console or Google Analytics or whatnot. So, there's a lot of stuff being done kind of behind the scenes to be able to kind of have that back-end optimization. The other thing is front-end optimization. Again, part of front-end optimization is everything that you see. So everything that you can engage with on a site. Another big thing with front-end optimization is we look at user experience. Now, some of this has to do with back-end optimization. And what I mean by that is, like, for instance, an example of user experience would be the speed of your website. It's, again, we're engaging with it, but you might have to do some stuff behind the scenes to make that happen. But also some other user experience things is making sure our website isn't just, black words on white background. That we actually have some pictures, we have some color, maybe we have some animation, that it looks good on a mobile device as well as a desktop. So, while we're looking at all of the content that's on there, again, all the words are super important, all of the media, all the videos and pictures that we're putting on there. One really big thing to know about front-end optimization is we're also trying to gauge the user experience and trying to improve that for Google and also obviously users. And so, again, it goes back-end optimization, front-end optimization, which are obviously dealing with the entire, website as a whole. And then we also have off-site optimization, which is going to be everything that's not your website, but everything that's pointing to it. So these can be social media accounts. This can be local listings, video and YouTube, things like that. So the 3 different types of SEO, and then they're done in 2 different phases. And so the 2 different phases of SEO are foundational SEO, which is essentially laying the foundation to your relationship with Google. Remembering that what SEO is, at the end of the day, if you maybe take away one thing from this presentation, it would be that SEO is like having a long-term business relationship with Google. So just like any business relationship, you don't just shake someone's hand at a networking event when you meet them and the next day you're their #1 referral partner. No, we know that it takes time to actually build up that relationship, and it takes, again, effort from both ends. It takes, again, time. It takes different types of communication. If that's, meeting with them for coffee, if that's texting them, emailing them, video chatting them, there's different ways. Well, the same thing can be applied to Google in that relationship as well, in that we want to build a relationship with Google, knowing that it's going to happen over a period of time, as well as it's going to take multiple types of, touch points to be able to do that with Google, with different variety of touch points as well. So what we're doing is we're laying the foundation to Google, to build that relationship up. And really what we're trying to do is establish so that Google knows what we do and where we do it. So if that is local, if that is national, if that's international, it's really having Google understand foundationally what you do. And so this a lot of times, has to deal with again, like your service pages, again, the core foundation of the content on your site. So normally this is where the reason we call it foundational SEO is this is what your website is built around and built on. Next, and then once we have that foundation set with Google, then what we move into is called relational or ongoing SEO. And this is now, again, building that relationship up with Google. So this is having Google, again, get to the why. Why should Google rank you above somebody else when we're searching for a certain key term? That's really what it kind of comes down to, but we can't get there unless first Google knows what and where we, again, operate. And then also then after we build that relationship with them, then Google can say, hey, I'm going to recommend this business, you, above your competitor because you've built that relationship up. So it's really important to understand the 3 different types and then the 2 different essentially phases and, again, the different types of relationships that we're doing here with Google for search engine optimization. So the first thing is to look at the content on your website. And so the content from a foundational standpoint, but then also from an ongoing standpoint as well. And so when we look at this, the first thing we want to start out with is understanding the keywords and the key phrases that make up our business and our services and everything like that. Knowing that what Google does essentially, it's called a kind of spider technique, is they send out little bots onto your website and they scan the entire website. Now they're scanning it for, again, other content and making sure that it's mobile friendly and stuff like that. But one of the main things that they're doing is they're scanning the content on your website so that they know, again, what you do and essentially where you do it. They need to essentially glean the meaning of those, again, of that content and of those paragraphs and those pages that you're writing so that they know what you do so that you can start building a relationship with them so that they can kind of relay that back to their users. Because again, at the end of the day, we want to make it as easy as possible for Google to analyze and to read our site because essentially we want to make Google look like a rock star. And what I mean by that is that when you do a search on Google or anybody does a search on Google, they're looking for an answer to something. It may be, again, to buy something. It may be to learn something. It may be just to do research, to maybe have some fun. Or whatever, but they're looking for a solution to something. And so when we can give Google more opportunities and more potential solutions for their search results, that obviously makes Google look like a rock star because someone goes to Google and they type in a question, a query, or whatever it may be, and they find a solution on there, which may be you then, is that, again, Google essentially almost gets credit for that because they facilitated that solution finding. And so again, it's just making sure that the easier we can make it so that Google understands, again, our website, it can read our website, the easier it is going to make Google look like a rock star, and Google's going to, relay that back to you with having a better relationship. So how we start that though is with keyword research and understanding how we can convey what we do to Google. Now, the easiest way that you can do this, you can kind of do it the easy way, or you can kind of do it the more technical, aggressive way. The easy way, honestly, would be just to take a piece of paper and start writing down the key phrases or essentially the services that you provide. So essentially the search terms that you utilize or that others utilize to essentially find you. Definitely, again, taking a list and doing it, again, just putting it down on paper, putting it down onto your screen so you have a list of that. I also recommend actually segmenting those out so that again, for different services, you have different core key phrases. Also, you may have different types of demographics, meaning that, if you are a roofer, obviously you have roofing as a service, but maybe you have residential and commercial. Well, those words and those phrases are probably going to be different. So the idea here is not just to get one main list of all these core keywords that you want to utilize or that you feel would be beneficial for Google to know, again, about yourself and how you explain and how you would describe your services. It's also important for you to put them into different demographics, thinking about in the mind of one of your demographics, how would they search for you? Now, what we do from there then is we would look at, again, you can either just take that list and start going to town creating content, or more specifically, and if you want to be more strategic about it, then what you want to do is you want to do more heavy lifting keyword research around those key terms. And how you are going to do that is you are going to, again, utilize software to kind of help you facilitate that. There are actually a couple of freemium types, which means they kind of allow some free usage of their software. And if you want to go even further in depth, you can pay for it. The two that I highly recommend that you guys look at is one is called Moz, M-O-Z, and the other one is called SEM Rush. So Moz and SEMrush are two really good platforms where what you can do is you can start to see different trends. You can get better ideas for other search terms. Because one thing that can sometimes happen is if you just put down the keywords that you think people are searching for and are utilizing, what can happen though is that you may be short-sighting yourself because that's maybe what you utilize in your industry, but maybe somebody outside your industry doesn't always use it that term. Maybe it's the correct way that you describe yourself, and honestly, it may be the correct way that they should be describing it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what we're doing. It matters what the actual end user is searching. And that's why these softwares are really important, because we can add the keywords that we put in, and they can help us actually find and discover other keywords that we maybe didn't think about that people are actually searching for. So again, I highly recommend starting and writing down all of your keywords, segmenting it into different kind of demographics, and then taking that and utilizing something like Moz or SEMrush, if again, to be able to kind of expand upon that and really kind of come away with again, a solid list under each service and each demographic of again, how you would describe your again, your business to Google essentially. Now, what we do from there then is what we want to do is now start making sure that we have content created around them. So the easiest way is honestly to take all of your services and your demographic services, again, going back to that example, is again, not just roofing, but taking residential roofing and then commercial roofing and having them be two separate things and creating content around them. So a couple things with that is every service page and every service demographic page should be its own, again, page. So we shouldn't just have a service page and we just list all of our services there and that's the only way. Now, again, if you want to have that page, that's fine, but you better have like a read more or a find out more or whatever it may be that they can click on and then find out more information on a separate page. The reason that this is super critical is this, is that when we put all of our service content on one page, what happens is that, again, we put all of this content there and, they're different services. So again, going back to the residential and commercial roofing, yes, they're related, but they're two separate ones. If we put them all on one page, what happens is that when someone's looking for a residential roofing contractor and you have it all on one page, Google goes, hey, I've got a match for you here, but it's only 50% of the content. Whereas if I take that residential roofing content and put it on its own page and maybe add some more pictures and have some more space to do some more stuff and flesh it out a little bit more, now Google goes, hey, I've got a match for you, and it's 100% match. So that's why, again, having those service pages can be super critical to be able to help Google understand what you do and how you essentially kind of do it. But also more specifically, not only from a Google perspective, it's also really good marketing because you're talking specifically to that market, again, to that user that's there. And so it's super critical to make sure that you have it, again, all of those pages parsed out. Now, again, I know the talk that kind of comes back is, well, hey, Ben, I really want a website that is really, again, modern design. And I know a lot of people don't want to read a lot. And so now you're telling me to create more content, but yet I know that people and myself, I don't want to read more content. So how do we balance that? And it's a fantastic question because we kind of sometimes do get into a quandary a little bit of that, again, we can build a site that's perfect for Google and has all this content, but it may not be the best user experience or the best, again, use of modern design or whatnot. But then on the flip side, you could build a website that just has pictures and just has design, but then unfortunately, again, Google can't necessarily read it. So we need to kind of find some balance here, and usually some ideas for that, for instance, are like if you do want a service page that's very photogenic, that's very minimalistic in your descriptions, having a simple, again, read more button to then take that person to another page that wants to. And so and that's a great way, for instance, to still have way modern design, but then now be able to have them, again, read more. And now Google can really read that content as well. Another idea is an accordion, so like when you press a little plus button and it expands, that's another really great way to have more content on the site that, again, can still appease modern design, but then also can appease Google as well. So the idea is starting with those service pages, and the goal that you want to try and reach for is for every service page you on there, you really want to strive for at least 500 words. Now, again, if you're a little less, that's fine. Like Google will still index it, but the idea is that we want to try and strive for about 500 words for that. Another thing to know too with it is that we want to make sure that the content is unique, natural, and relevant. Those are three big buzzwords that we want to make sure, again, they are essentially doing, and those are kind of the big buzzwords in the industry. The most important one, though, is unique. And so what we talk about that is, and this is where you may want to get potentially a copywriter to help you, or a friend or a family member that has some copywriting skills to help you, because again, not only do we have to try and get to 500 words for that page, which sometimes can be a trick, but we also have to make sure that it's, again, it's written from us and we're not copying and pasting, but also that it's natural. And that's another big one. We need to make sure that we're not just trying to stuff in keywords into the content, because believe it or not, there's actually a piece in the Google algorithm that actually tries to test the naturalness of your content, to make sure that we're not just stuffing in keywords and, again, and just stuffing them in there just for the heck of it, just try to get more SEO. Usually the good rule of thumb that I tell people is if you can't print off that content and get in front of a group of people and actually read it and sound, professional and sound, again, intelligent and everything like that, then you probably shouldn't have that content on your website. Again, it's not worth trying to, scheme out, to scheme against Google or anything like that. Really just follow the rules that Google has to build a better relationship with them. So we want to make sure that we create our own content, not copy and paste. We want to make sure that it comes into our tone and our voice. And then we also want to make sure that it's relevant. And this a lot of times has to do with blogging, but also it has to do with obviously our service pages as well. We want to make sure that that content is essentially relevant for the times that are happening. The reason that this a lot of times happens with blogging is because obviously topics kind of come and go. And so we want to make sure that, again, when it comes to blogging, that we have kind of, again, consistent top of mind topics. Like a prime example is, Skol Marketing's been around now for 8 years. Well, what we were blogging about in the different strategies we were utilizing for digital marketing, 7, 8 years ago is vastly different than now. So we want to make sure that that content is kept up to date. Also, obviously, making sure that your services are kept up to date. If you change your services, if you add new ones, if you remove them, obviously that's important to not only convey to a user, but also having that content on there so that's conveyed to Google. Because again, if we're changing what we do or where we do it at, obviously that's changing the foundation of what Google built that relationship with you on. So just making sure that we have unique content that's natural in tone, that is also then relevant to our business and our kind of times now. The other thing too is we want to make sure that it's kept up to date, not only from a, making sure that it's relevant standpoint, but also a consistency standpoint. This is again another key indicator of how we can actually build a relationship with Google for that relational ongoing. Again, if you spend all this time building out your, again, your different service pages, and you have all of this service content there, and you have all these pages, well, that's great. But the problem is that if you just stop there, again, you've just started the relationship with Google. You haven't taken it to the next level to try to build that relationship with Google. And so keeping it up to date and consistently developing content is really going to be key. Now, the three main ones that you can kind of look to focus on for, again, ongoing content is one is blogs or articles. So writing about topics that are relevant. Honestly, a really good idea for blogs too is to take a question that you get all the time from either clients or people in your industry or colleagues, and really pretty much just ask that question and then answer it. You may be able to do that in one blog. Maybe you do that in 2 blogs. Maybe you do that in 3 blogs. But the idea is, that's another really good idea, is to kind of start with a question and simply answer it. Also, you can go more in depth to your services or give people tips or techniques or strategies on things that they can do with, relevant in your industry that would also be helpful to your users. So again, blogs and articles are, again, one. Another one is social media content, which again, I know we'll get into in just a little bit here, but really just knowing that, in creating some of that content on social media can also have a positive impact on SEO, because again, Google can see that you're producing content. It's also showing effort to Google. Yes, again, the blogs that we create may not get hundreds or thousands of views, but they still have a benefit because again, we're showing Google that we're trying, and we're still, again, creating content so that a lot of the content that you're going to create is naturally going to have your keywords and the different things that are talking about your business, about your services, about your demographic, which obviously helps now Google not only understand more, but now we have more content revolved around that, which Google loves to see. But then we're also creating on a consistent basis just to make sure that we're consistently building that relationship with Google. So again, we have blogs and articles, we have social media, and another one can be videos. So creating some, again, videos, if those are infographic or animation videos, if that's a video like this where you're, pulling up a, video conferencing software and talking to it, or maybe having, a couple other guests on there that you answer questions, or having a video crew come out and actually do, some video. There's a lot of different video that you can actually create. And so the idea though is there's more content that can be created than just, again, blogs or articles or just social media or just video. The idea is getting a variety of different content and a variety of different channels that we can communicate to Google and really build that relationship up. So, again, it kind of just as another reminder, the phase 1, phase 2, we've been talking about that a lot at, until this point in the presentation. And we're really just kind of talking about that. We've got the foundational SEO and the ongoing relational SEO, and just really keeping at the forefront of your mind that, again, all of this that we're talking about here today is trying to help you build a relationship with Google and then nurture that relationship and just build that bigger and bigger and bigger. One thing I always like to kind of mention too is it's called the Hummingbird update. This one came out several years ago. And the reason I like to mention this is that while keywords and the key phrases obviously are important because our whole language is derived from keywords and key phrases, the idea knowing that what a Hummingbird update did, several years ago when Google launched it, is that whenever you do a search query within Google, within microseconds, Google's actually doing another search on top of it to figure out what you actually mean by that. And why that's super important here is that while we do the keyword research and everything there, it's really important to know that, again, Google understands that there may be some different variations to different keywords, or, again, the S at the end of a word instead of non-S at the end of the word. That was always a big SEO one. The idea is we don't need to be concerned about that as much anymore because, again, Google's trying to understand what that person is searching for, what that person means when they search. Like I always like to give a fun example with myself is, being from Minnesota is I'm a big Minnesota Vikings fan. And so I always used to give the example and show people is like if I were to type in MOSS, Moss, I a lot of times would get results for Randy Moss because, again, Google a lot of times knows that I'm located here, sees some of my other activity and curtailed and understood who I was and kind of curtailing that and understanding what I'm meaning. Whereas if somebody else typed in Moss, they might get the green fluffy stuff on trees. So again, it's just a, again, kind of funny personal example, but just showing you that Google is trying to understand what the person means by that, search, not necessarily exactly, again, taking that search and trying to relate it verbatim. And so, and that really helps us, and that's why we want to have not only natural content that goes out to again, the internet, but also consistent content to help them as well. So the other thing too is to look at having an SSL. So now an SSL is the, if you ever see at the top of a website, it will say HTTPS. And so it'll say HTTPS, and it means that your website is secure. And so it's a lot of times like the little padlock on your, again, on your website. And really what this does is it just helps encrypt the information on your website essentially. There's a lot of technical things that go into an SSL, but how it's relayed to a, how it's relayed to a, again, website is that with the SSL is that Google wants to see things more secure. So before it used to be one of those things that if you had an SSL, it would just essentially be, again, kind of a plus to you. Now it's essentially an essential. So you need to make sure that your website is secure. And, we can do that by getting an SSL. And so this is, again, going to be the green padlock at the top of your browser. This is going to be kind of the HTTPS that you're going to see. And so a lot of times I tell people, if you don't see that, or if you don't have one, unfortunately, what's going to happen is that you are going to see most likely something that says not secure. Not only is that really bad for marketing, if someone goes to your website at the top of the address bar, they see something that says not secure, it also again can hinder our relationship with Google a little bit. So the biggest thing with SSL is go to wherever you host your website and ask them about them. Some companies have free SSLs, some cost upwards of $100 a year. It just kind of depends, but definitely make sure you get an SSL, not only to help protect your users' information on your site, but also just to even help your SEO. And another thing to also know is with SEO, it's longer but stronger. And what we mean by that is that, just like a business relationship, as I talked about at the beginning of the presentation, we're not just going to snap our fingers and we're going to be number one. We're just not going to snap our fingers and have, and be Google's number one referral partner or have the best relationship with them. It takes a process and it takes time, but once we get up there, it's not as volatile up there, because obviously with a relationship, yes, things can change and things can, again, sour, things can re-engage and all that kind of stuff, which is always a positive thing there. That if you've, for instance, if you had really good SEO 5 years ago, and maybe it's just kind of slid because you haven't been working at these things, just like any relationship, you can re-engage with that person and start to re-up that relationship with them. And so looking at that, it's going to take you longer to do that, but once we get up there, we're going to have a stronger foothold and we're going to have a stronger relationship with Google. So it's important to, again, look at that and understand that it starts with keywords and content and goes out throughout the entire site, again, with that, but then also looking at continuously creating that content, if that is blogs and articles, if that's going to be videos or social media content, to help, again, with that. So moving on to, again, kind of social media, I know I've been kind of alluding to it, it is really looking at, again, looking at social media and knowing that, there's a whole other strategy, obviously, and a whole other ecosphere of social media when it comes to how do we get more likes? How do we get more engagements? How do we drive more sales through social media? And that's very valid. And we work with a lot of clients on that. But what we're specifically talking about here is there are 4 main social media kind of sites or, again, social components that you can utilize that can help you with SEO and help you with your business relationship with Google. So the first one is, it used to be called Google+. Google+ was technically deprecated last year, but there's a feature now called Google Posts that's on Google My Business. And we're actually going to talk about that a little bit later here when we talk about Google My Business. So it's not necessarily an actual social media site. It's more of a social-esque feature on an already established platform. But it can be, again, it's a social feature that can actually be utilized on Google My Business that can help you, again, with that and help you with your relationship with Google. But the 3 actual social media platforms that are really going to be able to help you with SEO, or at least nurture that relationship with Google, is going to be Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. The reason for this, and also don't be alarmed if you don't see your, again, your social media site on there. That just means that it doesn't have the most direct relationship with Google from an SEO perspective, but there's still a lot of value for other social media sites and platforms to be utilized from a business perspective to help you grow your business, your engagement, and everything like that. But when it comes to Facebook and Twitter, Google actually has a relationship with them where they can actually see your Facebook business posts, so which obviously shows, again, more content, which shows more activity, which has more keywords. Also, same thing, obviously, with your, again, with your tweets on Twitter. And then also, last but not least, is Pinterest. Is anytime you post something on Pinterest with your pins, it can actually show up within, Google Images when we're searching for that. And so with, oops, go back there. So when we look at, again, Pinterest, Twitter, and Facebook, and even, again, kind of, to sidestep Google Posts, these are social media features and social media platforms that we can be posting on that we can help benefit our, relationship with Google, but then also our entire, again, web presence in general as well. One other thing that we've also seen a lot of is going to be kind of the transition from desktop to mobile. And so with that, what we've seen is, we kind of just had desktop and then we had mobile specific sites, and now we have mobile responsive sites. And so the idea is that, you definitely want to make sure that your website is mobile friendly. Again, this is now several years ago where Google, again, it used to be if you just had a mobile site, it would essentially just give you a thumbs up and it would just help your relationship. Now it's integral, to have a relationship with Google, that you must have a mobile friendly site. Now, some buzzwords that you can kind of hear thrown around that I like to kind of throw out there for people is, one is mobile capable. That means that a website, again, can show up on a phone, but we have to essentially kind of zoom in on it. That's not good. If your website is mobile capable, that means that we need to make sure that we get it to be mobile responsive or mobile optimized. Mobile optimized or mobile friendly just means that at a high level, it is optimized or mobile friendly, that Google likes to see that. Now, the different types of mobile optimized or friendly sites is mobile specific or mobile responsive. And you can actually see on this screen here, the middle screen is just a mobile specific site. It's just going to be, again, it's very cookie cutter. I'm sure we've all kind of experienced with them. They start with M dot, whatever your site is. To be honest with you, they're pretty rare now, just because, again, most people have progressed to mobile responsive. But again, the reasons that we want to make sure that our website is mobile friendly is we still encounter many websites today with clients or colleagues that still are not mobile optimized. It's the number one thing you want to make sure of. You cannot start SEO and an SEO strategy or relationship with Google on the right foot if you do not have a mobile optimized or mobile friendly site. The other thing to know too is that last year in 2019, Google kind of switched over what we kind of call mobile first indexing. And so what that means is that when Google looks at again, your site and your web presence, they're looking at it from a mobile site first, and then essentially kind of going to your desktop second. Why that's important is, remember when at the beginning, when I talked about user experience, when we talked about the speed of your site, when we talked about all those things, is that it's kind of ironic that we build all these websites on desktops. And from a business perspective, a lot of times we're viewing our own website on our desktop, but realizing that the majority of people are most likely going to be viewing it from a mobile device. And now Google's looking at it from a mobile experience as well. So a couple things to know about that. That's where we want to make sure that we have, again, that we have it be obviously mobile friendly so that people can access and, go through our site and navigate, but also make sure that the speed of your site on a mobile device is still very good. Believe it or not, it can differ between a desktop and a mobile device. Also, again, going back to what we were kind of talking about is making sure we have enough content so that Google can read it, but also we want to make sure that from a user experience standpoint, we don't have too much content for a mobile device, meaning that I'm sure we've all gotten onto a mobile device and mobile site where we have to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll because there's so much content. That's where, again, like accordions where we can expand or read more buttons can be a lot more useful, especially from a user experience standpoint on a mobile device. They can still be more, useful on a desktop, but even more, valuable on a mobile device where we're able to, again, be able to kind of hone in that and know that a lot of times on mobile devices, people are looking for, again, information quicker, and they need to be able to experience in a different way than on a desktop. So the biggest thing is to make sure that you have a mobile friendly site. And I always like to give this little tidbit out there is Google actually has a test and a piece of software that you can actually platform that you can go and see if your website is mobile friendly. And unfortunately, it's not a very good URL, but what it is if you just Google mobile friendly test. So just go to Google and Google mobile friendly test. It will, again, pop up and you can just type in your URL and Google will tell you if it's mobile friendly or not. It also will tell you if there's any issues or anything like that. So it's a really good indicator. Even if you think your website is mobile friendly, I always tell people just to check it because there have been times where it actually is mobile friendly, but unfortunately because of a glitch or some type of, tech or code issue, it's not being read that way. And obviously we need it to be read that way one way or the other because of that. So mobile friendliness and having a mobile optimized site is, again, super critical to having a relationship with Google. There really isn't a relationship with them if we don't have a good user experience on a mobile device. Now, the next one is talking about local listings or specifically for Google, Google My Business. Now, this is one that if you're just starting out with search engine optimization and you have more of a local presence and not necessarily like a national presence or national only presence, this is the platform that can give you one of the highest ROIs when we're looking at return on investment and where to start and the value of different SEO kind of components. So again, as we kind of talked about at the beginning, is that this listing can show up kind of within a little map section on a Google search. And why that's important is that not only is it, it's an opportunity for you to obviously put your business on the map, actually physically put it onto there, but it also really helps with SEO, and especially with mobile devices, because these, again, listings are very quick and easy for people to figure out what they're looking for and what they're needing, and then be able to kind of go to the company's website or whatnot. So they're searchable local listings. They're kind of like online yellow pages. And the idea too is you can kind of treat them almost like very tiny little websites. And so the idea here though too is why Google, again, listings and Bing listings and Yelp listings and, honestly, the other listings out there are important, is because on search results, we can actually be showing up multiple times. Not only can we show up in the organic search results if we went back to that image way at the beginning, but now we could also be showing up right above that in the map section. So now we could show up two times for the same result. Well, now obviously that gives you a, again, 2 times multiple of being able to be picked, because you're now showing up 2 times where your competitors may only be showing up once. Also, if you ever want that ID card or knowledge graph on there, the other idea is that you have to have a Google My Business account, because it pulls in from that. And so going back to what we're kind of talking about too, is treating them like little tiny little websites. The reason I say that is you're going to create them and they're obviously going to kind of have their own little page. But the other thing too is to actually kind of work on them on an ongoing basis, just like you would with your website with adding content like blogs and videos and things like that. Here on your Google My Business account or any local listing, you can do some, again, other things to actually enhance your online listing. So the first one is Google Posts. So within Google Posts, we can, we can essentially post about updates, about products, about sales, about events. If you go to the Skol Marketing Google My Business page, you'll see all of our events are on there. It really, again, it helps by adding content. Also from a marketing perspective, it's really nice because we get traffic from there to have people know about our events. So I really encourage Google Posts. If you can be doing Google Posts 1 or 2 times a week, again, I said, highlighting a product, highlighting a sale, highlighting a hire, highlighting maybe if you move your office, highlighting an event, really, again, just finding, again, something that we can kind of highlight, and just really kind of making a post about them. And really, they're just like any other social media post with a picture and, again, essentially text and even a call to action button that you get with it. It can be super useful. Another thing on there is being able to add pictures or videos. You can probably have those right at the beginning, but as you get pictures and videos created, putting them on there as well, to have those on your local listing. Again, not only does that help with information, that also helps with being able to, again, grow that relationship with Google and have that there. Last but not least, though, when it comes to Google My Business and also other, again, local listings out there, is reputation management or getting reviews can be super critical. So this can really help you rank well within a, again, a local listing kind of ecosphere. It's not the here-all end-all, but it really does obviously help you to be able to do that. So trying to help and encourage, again, to get reviews, if that's having some buttons on your website, if that's having a sign at your establishment, if that's having a link when you send invoices, asking for feedback or whatever it may be. A lot of these platforms actually have links where you can actually get that link and then send it out on behalf of yourself to try to, again, get some feedback on those. Now, knowing with reputation management, the other thing with that though, is that you can't control necessarily who writes reviews and who doesn't. And so that's why we always like to kind of label it reputation management, is because whenever you get a review in, if it's positive or negative, you want to make sure that you actually respond to it. Not only, again, is that just good practice, and, again, even like when they're positive, just saying thank you, it's adding some more activity to your, again, your page, but also it's just from a marketing standpoint, it really does help when you're, again, you see a lot of that engagement from the owner, which is you, down to a positive review. Now, when we get a negative review, obviously, again, it's very unfortunate. Nobody, again, on this call or nobody watching this video is perfect, nor is any company out there, but it obviously is unfortunate when that potentially, situation leads to a negative review. Now, I do, again, highly recommend responding still to those, we want to respond to the positive ones and thank them, but we also want to respond to the negative ones. And we want to remember that we're responding publicly. So again, kind of bashing somebody else or coming back rudely, it does nothing besides actually make your situation worse. But studies have actually shown that if you respond positively and apologetic and really just, come at it professionally, that it doesn't necessarily do anything, obviously, for your ranking. Like if you had a 5.0, unfortunately, it's going to come down. But when you respond publicly to that and you take a diplomatic approach, or you kind of take the high road, what studies have actually shown is that the negative value of that review actually gets diminished once someone's reading it. So again, when you respond back to it, positively and kind of explain your side without accusing them, without attacking them, it actually diminishes that value from a psychological standpoint. So again, it's not necessarily going to help your ranking, but it still is an important thing from a marketing perspective to do that. Another thing to know too is obviously Google Maps, is pretty much Google My Business. All of the locations that you ever find on a Google Maps, if you use that on your phone or on your computer, is derived from Google My Business. Also to know why I have Yelp at the top there is, if you ever have an issue or obviously want to be shown on Apple Maps, that actually has a partnership with Yelp, and that's where all of those listings are derived from. And so, again, knowing that, Google and Google Maps is super important, Yelp and Apple Maps is also super important. So making sure that we have those, and Bing is still just important to have though too. Now, the other thing with it though, is there are literally dozens upon dozens upon dozens of other local listings out there. These are really kind of the big three that I always highly recommend doing on your own and doing manually, but there are a bunch of them out there that are still important. Now, the platform that I like to use and recommend is called Moz Local. What it does is it helps you kind of go out there and actually find some of the other ones, and they have partnerships with them with their databases, and they actually push out the information. So it can be really helpful and really kind of useful of your time. Instead of going to all of these different ones individually, you can actually just go out there and kind of maybe once, with this program, and really kind of affect a bunch of local listings out there. There's another one called Yext that you can also kind of check out. But the idea is potentially looking at utilizing one of those systems to really kind of help you out. Because again, it's going to be able to, do multiple listings from there. So another big one is Google Analytics. Now, the funny part about it is, as we're talking about SEO, is all the stuff we've talked about thus far, and even that we'll kind of continue to talk about here, is that doing them essentially gives you an SEO benefit. Well, the thing with Google Analytics is that just, using Google Analytics is not going to give you a benefit. What it's going to do, though, is it's going to allow you to assess and validate a lot of your SEO kind of, again, strategies, also your whole business, again, digital marketing strategy, and be able to find other opportunities. So obviously it's super important. It's super, again, critical, and you probably can find out more information about your business than you would even know or want to know potentially with Google Analytics. Now, a couple things to know, and the reason I always like to put it in my presentations is not only is it important, but also as a reminder that Google Analytics cannot retroactively go get data. So what that means is that you want to make sure that Google Analytics is installed and running correctly, because if you don't have it installed, or you don't have it installed correctly, again, there's no data being collected. That data is essentially lost. So I always like to tell people is to make sure Google Analytics is installed on your site. You can log into google.com/analytics and see if you have it. You can check to see if it was on your site. It's different for every CMS out there on how you built your website, but you can work with the person potentially that built your site to see if you did it. And if you don't have Google Analytics, or it's not running correctly, to make sure that you actually get that there, and to get that, again, installed as well as running correctly. So another cool tool that, again, I absolutely love too is called Google Search Console. So Google Search Console, what it essentially does, it's essentially having a direct communication to Google and being able to kind of communicate a lot of the back-end stuff. So the number one thing that we get to be able to do is a sitemap. So a sitemap is essentially, it's a living file called an XML file. And what it is it's like a skeleton of your website. And what we're doing is that we are essentially connecting that to Google so that Google can see a skeleton of our website, see the outline of it, it and then be able to, again, kind of see the changes that also happen. So when you add pages, for instance, and you're changing your skeleton of your site, when you're adding blogs, adding service pages, removing them, this is obviously then being able to be put there, and you're able to, again, communicate that with Google, and Google's more efficiently able to see what's going on your site. So super critical, especially as we start to build a relationship with Google, to make sure that we have a sitemap, or if we have multiple sitemaps, that those are uploaded to Google. And we're able to do that via Search Console. Also, we're able to, again, get some basic analytics of our site and some keyword data. We're able to do some, again, alerts. So for instance, if we want, again, this is actually a big one that's really come on lately. So for instance, if Google finds out that there is an issue with your mobile site, if there's an issue, with your site loading, if there's an issue with something on your site, either, again, front end or behind the scenes back end, it'll actually send you a notification, and you can actually, again, notice that Google's actually reading this site incorrectly or wants it to be, again, done in a different way. And we're able to then kind of go ahead and change that. So it can be super critical, especially when we start talking about that user experience, but really Google's specifically telling you through this program that, hey, this is how we're reading your site, go fix it. Or this is how we want to see your site, go fix it. So super critical, and you want to make sure that you do have Google Search Console. Another big one, and honestly, again, is like, people kind of ask me, hey, Ben, what's one of the, again, the newest ways, or what's one, kind of the hot way for SEO and things like that? Honestly, one of the big ones is YouTube and video. Video has just exploded, and I know we all know that video was huge to begin with, but it just continues to get bigger and bigger. And so when it comes to, again, when it comes to YouTube, we want to make sure that, again, we have as many videos as possible. And I know that can be easier said than done, and stuff like that. But at the beginning, like we kind of talked about, is YouTube and just videos and, again, kind of just general, just starting with videos is just a great way to obviously get them onto our website, to be utilizing YouTube for that. YouTube is actually the second largest search engine in the world. So Google not only owns #1, they also own #2. So super important to know that, and to, realize the power behind that. And not only, again, are they important on YouTube, obviously videos can be a great way to communicate with people on your website, but also people may not realize this, is YouTube videos can actually show up as an organic search result. So again, going back to some of the examples that we've talked about here, is if you do this correctly and you build a good relationship up with Google, you could be showing up in an organic search result, you could be showing up on Google Maps, and you could have your video also show up there. So the idea is now we're increasing our opportunity for how many times we can actually be showing up on a Google search result. So it's super important. Really want to look at, again, YouTube videos. Like I said before too, is I know sometimes it can be intimidating, sometimes it's easier said than done, but really kind of looking at that, we have, again, there's a multitude of ways that you can, create videos. If that's animation videos, if that's, again, jumping on and talking to a screen, or jumping onto a Zoom call and having multiple people join in and recording it, and maybe having a discussion, like a panel discussion. If that's having a video crew, or taking your own mobile device and creating something on iMovie. Just saying that there's a ton of ways out there to create videos about different topics, about your business, your industry, whatever it may be. A lot of times I recommend to people is, if you're struggling with what do I create, obviously you can create videos around your different services, around your companies, but also specifically your blog. You could, again, take one of the blogs that you wrote and maybe pull up a screen like this and start talking about it. Maybe pull someone into your discussion and actually talk about it. Now you have a, again, a video of that topic, but then you also have a blog of that topic as well. So just a lot of different ideas and ways that you can utilize video, but they're super critical to SEO and to nurturing and growing that relationship with Google. Now, the reason I like to kind of just bring up Google AdWords or Google Ads kind of just in general is that having ads, and there's kind of a misconception out there that if I do ads on Google, that it will improve my, again, my search ranking because I'm going to create a better relationship with them because I'm paying them. It's actually not the case, because again, then organic search results wouldn't be organic because you're essentially kind of in lieu paying for them by doing this program. Now, what obviously helps is you can have an ad show up plus your organic search result below it too. And, with Google Ads, it's a completely separate system. The reason though that Google Ads is also connected to SEO is that having better SEO and having a better relationship with Google can help your ads perform better. We can get better quality scores, which means we can get better cost per clicks, which means we can get better rankings, which means our ads are going to look better to Google, which means they're going to run better and function better and show up more. And so the idea there is that, again, it's more of a one-way street. Having, again, better SEO helps AdWords. Just having AdWords or, paying Google for ads does not impact SEO. So the idea is that, again, with all these digital marketing type of, things that we can do out there with Google, without Google, if that's social media, if that's videos, if that's our website, if that's advertising, it all is kind of intertwined with SEO one way or the other, either, directly benefiting it, again, indirectly benefiting it, and everything like that. And that's why SEO is, again, so important. So really kind of wrapping this up is really kind of looking at, again, we have this huge economic impact of what, SEO does, but really specifically it's starting with that content and those keywords and really kind of diving into our demographics and then looking at the different tools out there that we can do to help grow that relationship with Google. Because again, remember, as I said, if you're going to take away one thing from this presentation, it's that, SEO is having a long-term business relationship with Google. So we can utilize that with content on our website, front-end optimization, back-end optimization. Then we can look at off-site optimization with social media, YouTube, Google My Business, local listings, all of those different types of things, making sure that our mobile presence is very, again, very good. Again, looking at the different tools, if it's Google Search Console, if it is Google My Business, if it's Google Analytics, all of these different tools that are out there that are all free to use to then kind of not only, create a relationship with Google, but then also monitor and analyze that relationship with them as well. So, and then, obviously we just talked about with AdWords is being able to have it be indirectly affected because of that. So with that said is I would love to turn it over to you guys and have and hear some more questions that you guys may have.
Ben, we had a question about whether HTTPS is really 100% secure.
Yep. Okay. That's a great question. So technically it's, again, there are different levels of HTTPS or different SSLs. You can get them to essentially be like, nothing's ever, again, going to be 100%, but you can get, again, essentially up there. But the idea though is, again, for most sites, especially if your site is more informational, again, your site is, again, is really only going to need the basic level. A lot of times the ones, again, that you go higher up that you want more security for are like, for instance, if you have login systems, especially if you're doing anything with e-commerce, those are going to be the ones that you definitely want to look to have a higher level SSL. But honestly, for more basic informational websites that maybe just has contact forms or what, those are the ones that you want to make sure you have, again, just even the basic one and kind of go up from there.
All right, and then as a follow-up to that, the question is, does Google filter HTTPS as secured website? And if yes, how?
Yep. So they don't necessarily filter it. Again, what they do is they'll still show a non-secure website, but just like any relationship, having it be more secure is going to help you just, again, essentially have a better relationship with them. So again, it's not necessarily like they filter it, but you, again, obviously can have a better relationship with them when you have a more secure site.
All right. Then we have a question from Michelle. She wants to know if you can say more about Google My Business and what it is.
Yeah. So again, Google My Business is that entire, again, sheet that we looked at. It's a local listing. It's really, again, like I said, it's like having a yellow page, again, kind of listing of your website. So every business honestly should have one that deals with anything local. So what I kind of like to say is, what your website is for your global customers, while your Google My Business is for your local customers. And so if you have anything to deal with local, you definitely want to make sure you get onto Google My Business. But it's really like a digital, again, modern yellow pages that's showing kind of a brief overview of your business, but has a lot of cool features attached to it, like images that you can upload, videos, Google posts, reviews, obviously the contact information and ways that we can get to your website. So Google My Business is one of those, like I said, if you don't have or you haven't really touched, it's one of the first things we look at and suggest for clients and even just colleagues to really look at when it comes to search engine optimization.
There's another question coming in from Todd. He wants to know how you would recommend using LinkedIn as a social media tool.
Yeah. So again, like I know LinkedIn wasn't really listed on the, again, the one that, Google is really directly, connected to. I will say though, that some of your blogs and your posts, the articles that you post on LinkedIn can show up on search results, which can obviously have a benefit to you. It just like from your business page though, there's really not a connection there yet. Besides Google just knowing that you have a LinkedIn kind of profile for your business page, but also most likely yourself as well. So when it comes to SEO, there's not a, again, a huge benefit with LinkedIn, but honestly, from a marketing perspective, 100%, again, to look at LinkedIn, especially when you're in the business to business realm. And obviously LinkedIn being the most professional or business oriented platform out there, that LinkedIn can be a super powerful thing. Like I'll let you know that, it's the #1 social media platform that we get leads from and that I personally engage with, just because, again, a lot of the same mindsets and a lot of the same, again, businesses that you're looking to connect with are really on there.
All right, we have 2 more questions that we'll take right now. And then this one is, how can we make decisions based on analytics? And where exactly do we need to focus?
Yeah, so that's obviously a really big kind of question, and we actually have a full other, again, webinar and workshop that we do on analytics. But I guess the really brief, again, answer to that would be where you should focus is most likely the acquisition tab. What the acquisition tab and reports will show you on Google Analytics is where is your traffic coming from, and then what are they doing compared to other sources. Like, so for instance, is someone coming in from a search engine? Is someone coming in from a social media site? Is someone coming in by typing in skolmarketing.com? Well, so when we know that and we have that from there, then we can start to obviously validate and, again, start to understand not only where the traffic is coming from a quantitative standpoint, but then from a quality, again, standpoint as well. So that's exactly where I would start, would definitely be kind of the acquisition tab.
All right, and then the last question we'll take right now is, as a startup, what things should be done to see your website under organic search at number 3 or 4?
Yeah, so again, it really is, to really kind of increase your ranking or to see yourself wherever you're at. If this individual is, again, saying, hey, I'm on page 2 or below it, and I want to get to 3 or 4 or wherever that is, or 1, it really goes to that relationship with Google. It's, again, starting with laying the foundation. So really, you have to look at all of your content that's on your site and really kind of audit and make sure that we have enough content and that it's curtailed to the right message, that it's curtailed to Google, and then start creating more content, again, around that strategy for it as well. So really, again, unfortunately, there's not a silver bullet that I can give you that's going to shoot you to the top, but that's kind of the beauty of this, is like any, relationship, is that it's going to take some, give and take. The other thing is that, there's a lot of external forces. Like one thing that I'll say about SEO too is, some of it depends on how much your competitors are doing. Just like in the real world, if I'm trying to build a relationship with someone I saw and he's got 3 or 4 other people trying to do the same exact thing, obviously we either have to work harder, we have to work just as hard, we have to work more uniquely. That's where potentially, again, we can write blogs, but maybe we want to do more videos. If we know our competition isn't doing videos, let's look for things that our competition aren't doing or aren't doing as well as we think they could be doing, and then being able to put that into there. Yeah, so again, I want to thank you guys all for tuning in, and obviously for all the people that are going to watch this later. And if you guys do have any other questions, my contact information is right here. I encourage you to check out some of our other workshops and topics that I've kind of alluded to. We have a ton of different ones out there on social media, analytics. We have some on video, on Google Ads, and all that kind of fun stuff. But if I didn't get a chance to answer your question, or if you find a new question to answer, feel free to reach out to me with my email address out there. You can also text or call us there too. So I want to thank everybody for attending today, and you guys have a great day. Skol.